How is V12.2.1 for you?
It's definitely a mixed bag. I'm super excited to have it, and it's showing some real promise. And some of the stuff I've had it do is just absolute insanity. It's definitely feeling like a human behind the wheel and not like a robot anymore. I brought it. The first thing I did was bring it to Costco, and it just blew me away. It was absolutely incredible. Um, I'm working on uploading that video right now. I've been battling computer and editing issues all day, but it should be out pretty soon for people to see.
All right, that's good. Thanks for joining. Good night. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Um, how is it different from the version that you tested with Omar a couple of weeks ago?
There is there is one problem with it that has been pretty consistent for me, especially down like long open country roads, and that is that it seems to have a real hard time maintaining speed, especially if there's no lead car. If there's somebody in front of you, it seems to do a pretty good job of just following them. But if there's just a wide open road, it'll kind of slow down and speed up pretty like wildly sometimes. And I think that's probably why we're getting so many mixed opinions of version 12, because I think it really depends on where you live um, to, whether you're going to have a good or bad experience and how many roads like that you have. But
Have you
it
tried it with the
definitely,
auto speed offset off?
yeah, I actually have. And I had the same problem. I mean, it still just was going very, very slow. Like it would even be going down to like 30 miles an hour in a 50 sometimes. I mean, you can always override the accelerator pedal, but I'd imagine, if somebody just jumps in and that's their first experience, they'd be like, oh, wow, this is way worse than version 11. But it almost feels like the last 1% of issues that version 11 had that I thought were going to take forever to get fixed are all fixed. Like, and not only just fixed, but it handles them extremely well. But the most basic of driving tasks, version 12 seems to struggle with a little bit, at least for now. I didn't experience any of that when I was riding shotgun with you. And I think this is probably something that just needs to get trained out of it. Um, but yeah, it's just, it's so weird that these are the problems that it's having to me. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, I haven't seen any issue where it has trouble driving straight, but what I did see in my first few drives is that it felt like it was just going a little bit too slow and hesitating compared to the prior build. It was like a 25 and it was going like 15, 17, 20, and it was like, "Huh? Why is it going so slow?" So that I feel like was something that 12.1.2 wasn't doing, that 12.2.1 started doing. So I'm not sure if maybe it's extra cautious. They dialed up the cautiousness because they are going wide, or whether it's some sort of issue with how they train the model or something. It's picking up some false positive or something like that. But I've definitely noticed a little bit of the same thing. It was a little bit better at night when there was less traffic. But my first few drives, like that was the first takeaway I posted right away was it's kind of driving like a grandma.
Yeah, I would say grandma driver is a great way to put it. It drives like somebody who's like scared of driving, who just watched a bunch of like, when you get your license and they make you watch those videos of like, this is what happens if you speed and you'll die. It's like it's watched 1,000 of those videos and it's just terrified to go quickly now. But goddamn, is it doing some incredible moves? I mean, like at a red light, it pulled out, doing a right on red, it pulled out when there was still approaching cars in neighboring lanes, just because the one, our target lane was clear. Like while the cars were going, it's just, man, it's doing some stuff that I just didn't think we were going to see for such a long time. And I don't know how much parking lot testing you've done, but I think we're going to see actually smart summon very, very soon.
That's amazing. When you say it's doing things that you didn't think that was going to be done for a while, that last mile you're talking about, can you give more examples of that, please?
Yeah, it's kind of like accounting for things that I didn't think or that I thought may have not been completely visible on the cameras. So things like the dip that I posted, that is something that I drive pretty consistently, that road, and I have to take over every time because every single version just goes full speed through there. And not only does version 12 slow down appropriately, but it handles it like perfectly. Like slows down to a really nice speed, goes a consistent speed over the bump, and then accelerates right after. Like it's just it's not doing it justice just to say that, oh, it can do that now, because of how much better it can do it. It's like it is wild. It's something you kind of need to feel in the car, but the way it brakes and accelerates and stuff just feels really nice.
Thank you. Joey, I pinned at the top the dip that AI driver is talking about. He has a clip in there of a few seconds, and it shows perfectly how the car handles that dip. Jo-
Yeah, I had something similar that AI driver reminded me of. I turned left into my apartment, and there's a big dip after I turn left, and normally I just disengage right away when it's trying to get in that left lane because it does it like it just like fails right away. But I let it do it. It switched into the left lane, which it wasn't able to do, and then it churned into my parking lot and slowed down for the big dip into my parking lot, and then it made a left smoothly towards my gate, and if my gate wasn't closing, I think it would have made it through the gate. So that was like the most impressive thing that I witnessed on my drive.
Thank you, Joey. Josh. Okay, Josh dropped. AI driver, how do you feel about the nags? How frequent they are? The fact that you can't use the scroll wheel anymore?
To be honest, I haven't noticed much of a difference. I pretty much always just keep pressure on the wheel, which allows me to, makes me more comfortable to push the car as much as I want to push it. But I haven't really noticed a big difference as far as like it being extra naggy or anything, to be honest. I know others have, but they probably are just using it a little differently than I am.
Gotcha. Joey?
So I only use the scroll wheel when I drive, and I was still able to do it. Does anybody know why?
And you have V12.2.1, right?
Yeah, I'd still
Which
just
wheel were you using?
the left one.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, the volume. Normally, like, because I don't like doing the wheel, like, to feel it. So I just am constantly scrolling on my scroll wheel, the volume up and down when I drive.
That's what I do too on 11.4.9. That's why I was a little sad to hear that you couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, it still
Yeah,
lets
I'll have
me
to
do it.
test that out because it could be that it just has something to do with the auto set speed.
AI driver, you said you've been editing all day?
No, I've been battling my computer all day. It's been an insane amount of work for not a very long video. I really wanted to get something like I stayed up pretty late last night getting something done, and pretty much the entire day. I mean, I've been out most of the day, but my entire evening has been spent trying to get this video to save properly. So,
Yeah. Now that I started my own YouTube channel, I definitely appreciate the amount of work, which I always did, but it's insane. Like this morning, I spent like 10 hours trying to shave down the recording of these spaces by like another minute. It's crazy. It's wild. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing right now?
oh, I know, it can be an insane time suck for sure.
So you think you're gonna get it out by tomorrow?
Oh, I'll have it out tonight. It's
Oh, tonight.
I'm at the point where it's rendering. Yeah, I don't expect this to get, this isn't my usual setup. I don't have the third person view, so not a huge amount of effort went into this video. But I want to just release something.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been checking your page. We're all waiting for it.
I know I have a feeling it's going to be disappointing for people, but it does show everything that I talk about, and some pretty dang incredible moves. And I can't wait to get back out and go to like Berkeley and stuff in my usual testing routes. That's where I think we're going to see a massive improvement.
I mean, every single one of your videos have been extremely high quality. I can't imagine people being disappointed. Like, how can people um, show their appreciation for your work?
Like and subscribe, bro.
Like and smash that like button.
Smash that like button.
Exactly. It does actually help, by the way. It helps a lot, actually, the like button, in terms
Oh,
of.
and open up 20 incognito tabs and have a video of mine playing on each one. That'll help me too.
Oh, really? Is that right? If one browser has 20 tabs playing the same video from the same computer, no way. Doesn't the
Oh
IP
no,
address?
I mean, I don't know if things have changed, but that's how I got my initial watch hours.
Why didn't you tell me this 2,500 hours ago? I would have done that.
You're gonna get it any day now anyway. You'll be all right.
Yeah, I think it's coming up. All right. Omar, I see you pinned something at the top.
Yeah, just another guy with V12.
Wasabi says, something I haven't seen mentioned yet. FSD V12 just pulled into my driveway and stopped in exactly the right spot when I got home. It's such a small thing, but it blows my mind.
Looks like he's in the space if you want to invite him up.
So yeah, he's welcome to come up. Wasabi, just request to speak. When there's so many people, it's hard for me to find the person. I don't know how they do it in these big spaces with like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in there. How do they find the people to come up, or they just request to speak before anybody
There's a
else?
search. You can click on the little people thing, and then there's a search in the top right.
Oh, wow. That's the first. Boom. I did not know that. Wasabi, welcome.
Hi. Yeah. So yeah, to my great surprise, I got V12 this morning, and I did a initial drive and was kind of disappointed with the performance of it. It kind of thought everything was a speed bump and was crawling through my neighborhood at like 7 miles an hour. But just this afternoon, I had to go to Walnut Creek for an appointment, and it was like a 15-mile drive each way and zero interventions both ways. And when I got home, I know that it would like pull over to the side of the road when you get to your destination. So I wanted to see what it would do in this case. So I just kind of let it go. But when I got to my house, like it turned the turn signal on, it pulled into my driveway. My garage door opened automatically, and it pulled up like right up to the entrance of the garage door and then stopped. And I'm just sitting there stunned because it has never done that before.
Wow.
Wasabi, is there anything that if V12 hasn't solved for you?
So the automatic speed management, I think definitely needs some work. I've never really experienced what I think some people would call phantom braking before, um, but I do definitely feel it with this release. It's like it can't really pick a speed. Um, it's going either a little bit too slow or like a little bit too fast. It is definitely better. There is this road nearby me that has like a 25 mile an hour work zone that's been there for years, and there's never any work going on, and people blow past it at like 60 miles an hour. And basically, if I was using V11, it's a recipe to basically get rear-ended. But V12 just kind of almost ignored the speed limit signs and stayed with the flow of traffic very well. There was also like a dip in the road that it detected and slowed down properly for. Um, Overall, I'm very very impressed, but the automatic speed management could use a little bit more uh, smoothness in, yeah, just picking a speed and sticking with it.
Thank you. AI driver, I asked you the same question a few months ago, and you had said turn signals. Do you still feel the same?
Oh, turn signals are so much better with version 12. It is hugely better. I wouldn't say they're absolutely perfect yet, but I would say it's like at least 10 times better than they used to be. 100%. Like, it wasn't something that I ever even thought about during my drives, or even in the video like that I just made. It never even crossed my mind. So that's how good they've gotten.
If you could direct the Tesla AI team to work on one thing for you, what would you direct them?
I think it's just gonna be what everybody else has been saying currently about version 12, which is the speed management, because it can go um, much too slow, and I've also had it go much too quickly as well. I think it would feel better if it was a little bit more consistent. But like I said, I don't think this was as big of a problem with the last version 12 release. This feels like something brand new. So I have high hopes that they're going to get that taken care of pretty quick.
Yeah, exactly. Because I was seeing it and everyone else is mentioning it, but we've already seen V12 without really having the issue as prominent. So I'm hoping it is something that they're able to resolve relatively quickly. And then we're just sort of, stunned by how smooth it is.
Another question in the replies asking about wipers. Did you guys see any change in the performance of all the wipers?
They're just as bad as ever, if not worse.
Yeah, I second that. I would say they're worse if that was even possible.
So one of the things that's going on in the background here is they've also moved to an end-to-end model for wipers. Before, what they were doing is actually detecting individual raindrops with like an object detector and then trying to like classify that into the wiper speed. Now they have this sort of end-to-end model that just looks at all the cameras and tries to output the right sort of wiper commands. So they just launched the first version of this end-to-end wiper system, and they've got the second version of this end-to-end model for the wiper system that they're going to ship. So some people have noticed it getting worse in some ways. I kind of feel like it has been a little more annoying to me lately. That's kind of, I think, because they moved to this end-to-end model. So I'm hopeful end-to-end work for the car. Maybe it can solve the wiper issue too. But I really hope that second update's pretty good because it's been raining a lot here in California, and it's frustrating when there's light drizzle and it's not turning on, or there's really heavy rain and it's not wiping fast enough. It can be really, scary. You can't see anything. And then you have to go and try and adjust it manually, but then you have to turn it off. We shouldn't even be having this discussion. So I would almost say just declare failure if this doesn't get better soon with the end-to-end windshield wiper model and say, look, we shit the bed. It's been 6 years and people are still complaining about this. So just put the little water sensor in there and use it as a set of labels to generate really good training data. And then maybe you can make the Pure Vision ones work from that. But it's like what? Not more than $10. It's another production step. But they shouldn't be something that is even a discussion point in the car. It should just be something that just works. Now, the funny thing is, the FSD can actually drive even when the windshield isn't being wiped at all, which is kind of interesting. But it's scary for the driver because they don't have visibility.
AI driver, do you recommend people, your friends and colleagues and family, do you recommend them subscribe to FSD or purchase it?
That's kind of a tough one. I would say it matters how many or how much you drive your car and where you're doing it. I would say for now, I would probably recommend subscribing rather than forking out over $12,000 just to see if this is an experiment that you want to be part of. But I can imagine that changing in the not so distant future based off what I've seen with version 12, where I really think, like, in just a few updates, this will be something that you can really use and rely on pretty consistently. So if that happens and it becomes like the best driver assist in the world, which I guess it already is, but if it gets to the point where it's like doing everything correctly and it's super smooth and it's an easy recommend to buy it for 12,000. But currently, while it's still in the science experiment phase, I think try it out for a month or two.
Do you think the software getting so good that it can handle 99.99% of your miles gonna be enough, or do you think that milestone will wait? People take rate increasing will wait until either the beta label is removed or the nags are removed or some sort of a more concrete milestone.
I don't know if there's any concrete milestone like that. I mean, I guess there could be for some people because everybody has their preferences. Some people like the nags really upset them. My main thing is once the car starts, like once you start not paying attention to what it's doing and it just does things and it feels good, that's when I think the take rate is going to go up because there's a lot of people who I show full self driving to, and the second it makes a mistake or like a harsh brake or weird steering input, they're like, "Oh yeah, I would never use this," because it feels so kind of like robotic, you know. But once that's no longer the case and it's driving around like a good limousine driver, and it's like yeah, I think it's going to be a completely different ballgame.
And you think that's possible this year?
Yeah, man. Now that AI has taken over the world, nothing is impossible anymore.
Impossible is nothing, says AI driver. Omar, you agree with all that?
Yeah.
Wasabi, what about you? Now that you have V12.2.1, do you agree in a few updates it can handle 99 point most of your miles? It becomes usable for an average owner.
I personally think version 11 was kind of already there. Because I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and it's kind of like, I see a lot of people like commenting on Omar's videos saying like, "Oh, if only it worked like that." It does work like that for me. um, so yeah, I do. The thing about V12 is just like the overall smoothness, and as people have been calling, passing the wife test. So I think with that, definitely in a couple of versions, we're going to see a lot of edge cases ironed out, and yeah, I think this year we're going to see major changes.
Okay. Omar, there's a question, or more of a statement, and I want to see if you agree with this. Tim says wipers are never going to get great because of how poor the cameras are at seeing rain on the windshield. It's why autopilot doesn't struggle as bad as humans in misty conditions. They're going to need a dedicated sensor.
No, I don't agree. I think it's absolutely possible to train a model that can control the windshield wipers extremely well using the cameras on the car. So, you know, we've trained deep learning models to beat the best StarCraft player in the world, the best Go player in the world. We've trained a model to drive the damn car, right? So you can get the windshield wipers to work too. Some people say, well, the camera's too close to the windshield, but there's also a camera inside the car. So the camera inside the car could theoretically even look out the window, out of the side windows, out of the rear window, and see raindrops, right? You have microphones on the car. You could listen. They could absolutely get it to work, but it's just not been a priority for them, apparently. They've been trying to get the car to drive itself. And now we're in this bizarre situation where the car can drive itself really well and get from point A to point B, curb to curb with no intervention sometimes, but the wipers don't work. Tim Zaman, who used to work on the autopilot team, even had a tweet out and he said, I think they're going to solve self driving before they get the wipers to work at this pace, which is really kind of a bizarre situation, but here we are.
Yeah, I think the cameras. I mean, it's not just the rain on the window, right? I mean, the camera can look out and see that the road is shiny. And also, since all Teslas are internet connected, it can load the current weather for your current location. So I think
Absolutely, yeah.
it can have a pretty good idea if uh, it's raining or it's going to rain or what you're seeing is probably rain. Um, and also, like, regardless of whether or not there's a window, you can still kind of look outside and see some obstructed visibility that looks like rain. So it doesn't necessarily have to be droplets in front of the camera that triggers the wipers. There's a lot that can go into that, and if you plug all those things into a model, I think you can solve it.
Yeah, I mean, deep learning is a really powerful tool for this because you don't have to tell it, look out the window or do this or do that. You just say, here's the cameras, figure it out yourself. And it can look at some really subtle distortion of the lens from the water drops or whatever, totally not what you would look for. And it can pick up what it needs to do. So I think the end to end framework is a good framework for this. I think this is definitely not an impossible problem. And there's enough people complaining about this that they've dedicated the resources to solve it. It just hasn't been something they've really worked on before. Now they're shipping the end-to-end model. Some people are sort of noticing it getting worse, but I don't think it's impossible. I think if they got the car to drive this well, they can probably get the auto wipers to be acceptable. So what we can do is we can give them training data. Every time the wipers are shitty, turn off the auto wipers and set the speed yourself. And that'll give them some labels they can use to improve the system.
Is it nailing the U-turns every single time? Has it missed once yet?
I mean, maybe others people can speak in regards to that, but I've only really done that one, and that one was caused by a bad navigation route. But what impressed me the most was just how confident it was through the whole thing. Because we have seen older versions do U turns. Like, I think I remember version 9, like, I remember forcing it to do a U turn by overriding the accelerator pedal. But, like, if you look at all those videos, the car almost seems like it doesn't know it's doing a U-turn. The steering wheel's just jerky. It feels very unnatural. But the way this one felt was just on a completely different level. Like if you go and watch the video, it slows down. It goes to like a very consistent 6 miles an hour, and it just stays at 6 miles an hour through the entire turn. No unnecessary movements of the steering wheel. Even when the car was directly facing the curb, where it was just a few feet away from it and there was very low visibility around, it just continued through it, like, just like it was no problem at all. So it was a vastly different experience than any other version.
Yeah, I haven't come across any U-turns yet. I've only been testing it today, and there aren't that many opportunities. But definitely want to mention the overall smoothness and confidence is definitely a big change, especially like setting off accelerating after stop signs or like when you get a green light. Like instead of just kind of inching or like lunging forward, the car actually accelerates the way a person would, the way a person with a Tesla would, right? It's just a lot more confident.
Omar, we have a question for you in the replies from Kishore. Why do the auto wipers need to be AI controlled at all? It's a part that costs a few cents. We never got an explanation why Tesla is adamant on solving it using AI, risking poor user experience for years.
Well, the best part is no part. Why put a part when you cannot put a part? That was the thinking behind it. Now you can say this was moronic thinking because the cost benefit of putting this $10 sensor compared to getting this to work is huge. I mean, they probably spend millions training this model, right? So you can maybe question that decision and you may be right, but that's what they've chosen to do. That's their sort of philosophy. Don't put anything unnecessary on the car. Eliminate that step from the production line. Eliminate that part. One less thing that can break. If you think about it in really pure terms, people aren't going to be driving the car. The vision system's going to be driving the car. So the wiper should be controlled by making sure the vision system can see. That's at least in theory. what they were thinking. In reality, we're driving manually and we're like, what the fuck? Why doesn't this thing work? So, I think they'll probably get it to work, honestly, pretty well. But if they can't, then yeah, they should absolutely just admit failure and put a sensor in there. And that could even generate training data for the Pure Vision cars. The windshield wipers. Is there any benefit to doing it with AI? Not really. That's why nobody does it. So, in theory, it makes sense. In practice, it doesn't actually work. So, I'm just hoping they ship an update and they make it work. They say there's an update coming. So, maybe we can return to this discussion topic after the new auto wipers update and see if it's actually made things better or not. I think Yunta Sai from the autopilot team, he tweets about this stuff. So he responded to someone and said that we've got a update shipping soon for the auto wipers with the new end-to-end model.
I've only had, the Tesla for like 2 years, but I do think it is hella funny that they don't work. And I don't mind. It's not a big deal to me, but I
It's
think it's pretty
ironic for
funny.
sure. It's very ironic.
Yeah, it's like too ironic.
Yeah, there's definitely some element of like when all you've got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and Tesla has this AI hammer.
I mean, another funny thing is that it's always worked for me. I've never had an auto wiper issue.
It's always kind of worked for me. I mean, there's definitely a lot of times where there's more rain on the windshield than I would probably like. But like, if I look down at the center screen and just sanity check what the car can see, it can still see everything, and I can still see perfectly well enough to, be confident in being able to take over if it sees anything weird. Um, I've been driving at night in pouring rain, and I can't see the lines on the road like whatsoever. But if I look down at the screen, FSD is like, I got this, right? Um, and I turn on FSD, and it drives me the whole way home with no intervention, and I pretty much can only see other cars' taillights.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
exactly.
true.
It's like superhuman. Kian?
It's pretty nuts. I was going on like a zero intervention drive yesterday, like 2 times, and one of them I got on film, and I was so pissed because the guy in front of me for like no reason had road rage and just decided to like start backing up like out of nowhere into this spot, and he's looking at me like super pissed off and like yelling out the window, and I was engaged in FSD, and I was like, what is this thing gonna do, and obviously I'm really focused on it. And then I just found out in that moment that it doesn't reverse, and I think I knew that, but I still wanted to test it out because I didn't know if that it's applicable to V12 or like the late version of 11. And so I kind of just flipped him off, honestly. And my wife's sitting there and she's like, Keon, like, what the hell? I don't like when you get in confrontations with people. But she's really calm and cool. She knows my personality. And, I wasn't either. But this guy basically just like ruined this entire drive. Like it was like from Balboa Island, which is like this super beautiful place, all the way back to like South County and Orange County. And I just had to share that experience with you guys and let you know that in a small island, it can navigate super well with like like heavily populated and like kind of like a dense area. So and that's V11. I think 4.9 if I'm not mistaken, but it's really good. I think I'm disengaging myself when I don't need to because I'm just kind of learning the car. So it's like forced disengagements. But I've probably been driving with 25% of the time in the last 3 or 4 days, and I'm just like, wow, this is pretty nuts that it's only 2024. Like I can't imagine what it's going to be like in, I don't know, 6 to 18 months.
I mean, with that positivity, are you considering buying the software, or are you gonna stick with subscribing for now?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I'm totally cool with subscribing. At least I think there's like a period. that I want to kind of go through to see, and like I want to see how like committed I am, because like I'm young, like I do like to drive. I think like I like fast cars. I like to race and have spirited driving. Um, so I think I have to like critically evaluate like the immediate value add to me. Um, but yeah, for the time being, like I'm really excited around the subscription.
So you have a Tesla and also BMW, right?
Yes, 2 BMWs.
2 BMWs. Did you get FSD on those yet? No.
No chance.
Any
Thing
other
they can do to immediately increase the take rate is if they added it to your account. If you could just pay one $12,000 thing and have it on your account, I think people would be way more likely to purchase it. And I know this has been kind of beat to death, but I think that's something that they should probably consider doing.
Yeah, I mean, there are many things they can do to increase the take rate. Um, but they can lower the price, they can make it permanently transferable to other vehicles, or they can just make it work, and then take rate will go up.
What that has come to V12 that wasn't in V11 has blown your mind the most so far?
I mean, it's hard to really pick one thing. What really blew me away is how many things it did better and how much better it did them. We've never seen that from one update. Maybe an update will improve one thing or make something else worse. But I've never seen an update where these issues that I just had in every single build for years, and you just accept that FSD is just never going to do it correctly. And all of a sudden it just works. And not just one of these issues, but dozens of them. I mean, the way it goes around stop cars, when there's stop cars, this is an issue where frequently with FSD, if you weren't careful, you could end up getting stuck. Let's say there's an Amazon van in one of the lanes. You could easily get stuck behind it here in San Francisco. And then you got this annoying situation. Now you're waiting 2 minutes for all the traffic to pass so you can get out, disengage FSD, and then get back. It's very annoying. So it's really good at changing lanes. It can change lanes. The old FSD, you had to have this super big gap. You had to have like the length of a football field between you and the next car for it to actually have the balls to go and change its lanes. Now it can be aggressive. It can like get in front of people. It can peek over into the lane and then come back and then complete the lane change. Like it's just so much more human like, and so many little things like this where you didn't even notice FSD was doing it wrong. You didn't even notice how robotic it was. Like, for example, with pedestrians, when let's say it has to make a right turn and there's pedestrians crossing, it just sits there at the line like a fucking robot and just waits. And all the pedestrians in San Francisco are taking their time, they're laughing, walking. Now one pedestrian's exited the crosswalk, but another pedestrian's entering the crosswalk, and you're just fucking waiting there forever because it's driving like a robot. They're not even thinking about you because you're just sitting there and everybody's going, they're not letting you go. With V12, it just kind of creeps up. And even though there's pedestrians going, it doesn't run them over, but it kind of creeps up, just showing everyone, hey, I'm trying to go. And it makes space and it goes. Even if there's another pedestrian coming, it doesn't freak out just because someone's entering the crosswalk on the other side. It actually knows, okay, I can make it through and I'm not going to have any issue with this pedestrian. So just so many different things that it just does so much more naturally, and just the lack of sort of jerkiness, um like crazy random moves that don't make any sense. Um yeah. You really kind of just have to feel it for yourself to get it.
So it's just had one really big confidence boost then, right?
I mean, they've literally just thrown away the old system and many of the problems that came with it, just many of the endemic problems. Like, you think about ChatGPT, right? You ask ChatGPT a question and it can just kind of spit out this answer that looks human. It doesn't actually have thoughts, but it can just sort of statistically analyze it and say, look, I've read everything ever written on the internet, a huge amount of text. This sounds like something humans say. I've listen to everything humans say. This sounds like something a human would say. And similarly, with this approach, it's saying, okay, output like the commands to drive the car, but output something that looks like what a human would do. It trained on all of us driving manually, how we make those right turns, those left turns manually. And it says, okay, just output something that looks like something a human would do. So many of the like problems with 11, you just look at that sequence of output commands it's giving and it does not look human, right? So you can just sort of tell this LLM, or that's not an LLM. You just sort of tell this model, just output a series of commands that look like what you've seen the humans do in the training set. And they're just able to mimic that in kind of honestly a magical way.
Yeah, I second that. It's interesting you mentioned the pedestrians on the hour drive I just did like an hour ago. I did notice that before on version 11. I want to say the car would not even attempt to go across if there was a single person in the crosswalk. But um, with version 12, if there's somebody going the other way, like away from your car, they're in the crosswalk and they're already out of your way, the car will just slip by. It'll just go right through, just as a human would, instead of basically waiting there forever. Which sometimes in San Francisco there is never a window um, where nobody's in the crosswalk and the green light isn't on the other side. But um, also, the other thing that blew my mind, it's such a small thing, and I posted this just a little while ago. It's I just took the car home like an hour ago from where I was, and I wanted to see it pull over and stop by my house, like Omar had shown in version 12. And to my complete shock, it turned on the turn signal and it pulled into my driveway. And before, like on version 11, version 10, um, it would just like arrive at the destination and just stop in the middle of the road, and you basically had to take over or park or whatever. Like it's just kind of amazing. And there was one other thing that has always been a problem for me on version 10 and 11 is that there's this place nearby my house where there's a stop sign on the adjacent road that's visible from the road you're driving on, but it's not a stop sign for you. And version 10 and version 11 would always consistently try to stop at that stop sign because it saw a stop sign, it wanted to stop. But version 12, for whatever reason, I don't know how, it handled it perfectly.
Thank you so much, Wasabi, and thank you, Omar, for all the insights. Super helpful. I wanted to throw out kind of more of a future-looking question. Has anybody thought about, once FSD is fully ramped, fully functional, works super well as a level 4 system, have you guys or anybody else thought about what the ramp's going to look like, not for the vehicle self-driving functionality, but for all the infrastructure that'll be needed, like people at the charging stations to unplug and plug in the vehicles, clean the vehicles, like all those kind of external things that'll go into the robotaxi network?
Yeah, a lot of it is the same stuff we're already doing. We need service centers, we need superchargers, that type of stuff. So,
Thank
you
you,
could
Bosh.
have someone at the supercharger to plug them in. You could have Optimus or something. But yeah, a lot of the investment overlaps with what we're already doing for the vehicle business.
Yeah, I think even before we get to that part, I think the cars are going to be perfectly capable of driving themselves without drivers for quite a while, but it's going to take a while for regulations and laws to catch up. Um, so I think what you're referring to is kind of a ways out, and yeah, we're going to be we're going to need to have service centers and stuff and people there to be able to plug in your car for you while it's out robo taxiing or whatever. So or maybe if anybody remembers, like 10 years ago, Tesla had that video of that robotic snake arm thing that would go in and plug
Yep.
in your car for you. Um, maybe that'll exist. Who knows? Um, I mean, there's also stuff around like, what if the car gets a flat tire or something? Is it able to call roadside assistance and somebody change the tire and have it be on its way? Like, what if it has some kind of mechanical issue and stops? Um, I mean, we see this kind of stuff with Waymo where like it'll get stuck sometimes, and sometimes it'll get stuck so badly that they have to send out like a physical person to go get in the car and move it. Um, so while I think like full self-driving is like right around the corner, there's always going to be these like super tiny, extraordinarily rare edge cases that's going to kind of block it from being like there's nobody in the car.
Makes perfect sense. I mean, ultimately, it's just exciting that we're at the point where we're thinking about those kinds of problems. And I think that those problems will probably be blocking to a certain extent for, like you're saying, a fully autonomous network. But it's pretty cool to be thinking about those kind of problems.
Yeah, primarily, I think what FSD is all about right now is safety. I mean, so many people die every single day in auto accidents, and if we can make the roads as close to 100% safe as possible, that's a wonderful thing. And if that means for an extra, 10 or 20 years, that you like somebody's going to be in the car anyway, I think most of the time because you're going to be transporting people. So if you're going to sit in the driver's seat, and if that means that like you're the one who needs to pick out a parking space, then so be it. I would consider FSD to be solved at that point. Um, basically, when there's no more deaths.
That's a good point. As long as people are still dying, it's not completely solved. So you could really count the point of solving probably long after even driverless. But I think this is really something that is going to happen step by step. And a lot of people sort of get just blown away by the enormity of the problem and they go, oh my God, this is never going to happen. But you just got to take one step at a time. The Chinese proverb, how do you move a mountain? You start by picking up a single stone. So there's definitely huge progress being made here. I think there's no doubt that we'll have software that works perfectly nearly all the time before we have driverless. So what's the gap between it working nearly perfectly on our cars as a supervised system to actually being driverless? We could probably debate that one way or another, but ultimately it's probably going to vary jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Some places will probably be faster, some places will probably be slower. Um, and it'll be kind of an unpredictable sort of political process. But I would hope it happens relatively quickly. And I would imagine that there's always going to be sort of some interaction with the user. I imagine a driverless car of the future could speak to a user using natural language. It could maybe allow them to touch something on the touch screen, maybe, you know, tap where they wanted to park or point or something like that. There could be some way of interacting with the user. It just probably wouldn't be the steering wheel and pedals that we're familiar with today.
Omar, anything else you want to add to on V12?
I'm just excited that it's rolling out to everybody. So hopefully everyone will go subscribe and try it out for themselves and let us know what they think in their part of the country.
Big day for Tesla, big week for Tesla. As V12 rolls out, we'll see more and more, and we'll keep talking about it in these spaces. And I'm going to be looking forward to reading everyone's take. Anyone who has V12.2.1 who gets it in the coming days, you're welcome to request to speak and share your experience.